So it's just getting over that intimidation factor and just kind of just start using it. And you're going to make mistakes. But if as long as you're willing to break things and try new things and experiment, you're going to build something that has no benefit at the end other than your learning, but you just got a lot further because you now understand how the technology works, because you broke it and then you built it back up and you broke it again, so you just have to do that constant experimentation, and you just have to learn how to fail and be good at it.
Hey nerds, Monica here. Welcome to the Data Podcast for Nerds, where we get to talk to amazing professionals and ask them all about how they're using data to solve the world's problems. We're sharing all the tips, tricks, and nerdy fun bits to make you the best data professional that you can be. Today with us, we have David Lee. How are you doing today, David?
Doing good. How you doing, Monica? Yeah.
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Yeah. Always wanted to come on your show and definitely talk data with you.
Awesome. Yeah, so glad that you're here. We always start off all of our episodes with understanding people's origin stories. So, if you could please tell us about your background and how you got to where you are today in your career.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I did get undergraduate degree from information systems from NIU. After college, I joined the Air Force, and where I was a SATCOM wideband telemetry systems technician. That's like coming up towers, setting up antennas, radio frequency signals, a lot of hardware stuff. And then I transitioned over to quality assurance while I was in the Air Force. And from there, I went into internal audit, got my CPA, got a master's degree in accounting, and then joined the public sector originally because of my background in the Air Force, and worked for Metro Commuter Rail, which is the third largest commuter rail organization in the nation. Worked my way up in that organization as a chief audit officer, and then joined United Airlines after that for about a year, and now here I am at Cushman Wakefield as a director of IT Audit Data Analytics.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What did you do over with American Airlines?
I headed over their IT audit function over there, and so was auditing a lot of their old mainframe systems, SEC processes around cybersecurity, looking at IT controls, and doing some data analytics work there as well too. Oh yeah, the best part about it is of course the flight benefits. So definitely got to get a free Disney trip flight over when I went to the Leadership Academy for the IIA, and so can't beat that as a benefit. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's definitely a great perk. What kinds of data analytics did you do for them in the audit department?
Yeah, I didn't do as many data analytics as I did when I was at Metro Commuter Rail. So I could talk a little bit about that. A lot of stuff around purchase card. The government uses a lot of purchasing cards to buy stuff, and there's always a lot of fraud or weird stuff that's happening around there. And so that was a big part that we did using a lot of Power BI. This was before AI, so you had to do everything programmed manually by hand using Jupyter Notebooks and Python, looking at Stack Overflow. Very different world almost compared to today. But did a lot of that type of work, looking at expenditures for capital assets, accounts payables data, accounts receivables data, and other types of like IT data as well, looking at cybersecurity information, IP addresses, but all very much using Python, Power BI, and SQL. So that was kind of what I did there. At United Airlines, we did a lot of looking at stuff like Splunk data because I was with IT audit, so looking at cybersecurity data as well too. So Splunk data and seeing how many incidents there were, and looking at millions and millions of rows and analyzing that using Jupyter and Python as well. So that was kind of my mix of just summing it up of some of the data stuff that we did at both organizations.
Yeah, nice. I just realized I think I said American Airlines and you said United Airlines. So
Yeah,
apologies for that.
That's all right. I think they try to take it over Americans. So yeah. But anyways,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So easy confusion. Yeah.
So, as an auditor myself, I know how much data analytics is still very new in that space, and
Right.
a lot of audit teams still aren't fully involved in that space. So I'm just curious, like, how did you yourself get involved in that space of the data analytics and audit overlap?
Yeah, that's it's a very very interesting story because it was definitely a journey. Because when I first got into internal auditing, I did a lot of SOX and financial audit, like most people would get into, and then I did some compliance audit as well too. And then when I got to actually Metro Commuter Rail, I had seen all the different types of transportation data that they had, all the different financial and capital asset data. They're just a wealth of knowledge. There's just no way to analyze it, and the way I was doing it in the past was with a lot of Excel, VBA code. I mean, this sounds like very familiar rudimentary stuff to a lot of like older folks, but um, you know, when I first learned about Python is when I really started getting into more and more data, and that's when I went to U of I to actually get my master's degree. While I was at Metro Commuter Rail, and they actually had paid for it, so which was a great benefit when I was there. Yeah, and so I took a class, a Python programming class, while I was at U of I, and I opened up Jupyter Notebooks for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, this is what I've been looking for because I've been programming so much in SQL, um, on SQL Server and MySQL and in Excel using VBA that after a while, like the data sets would get so large that things would just latency would get there, and you couldn't even open up the Excel workbooks. It was hard to, how many joins you're going to put in a query in SQL Server. And so when I first then opened up Jupyter Notebooks, I was like, you could just put the code and then bam, the visualization comes out. I was like, I got to learn Python. So I spent, a good 4, 5, 6 years learning Python, just everyday programming, just like I was going back to school, and was really able to make a difference while I was at Metro. Analyze a lot of the financial data that was there, looking at accounts payable data from duplicate payments and invoices to how fast we pay our invoices. A lot of your traditional run-of-the-mill financial data analytics that was kind of still new to a lot of organizations, a lot of internal art department organizations, and they weren't used to really doing that. A lot of people are still doing things by hand, sampling stuff, and being able to take an entire population of data. As long as you had the data, you were able to clean the data, you could analyze and do testing for 100% of the population. And that really sped up a lot of the stuff that we did over at Metra. And then, that's how I really got into it was through Jupyter Notebooks and Python. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. What are your favorite types of projects to work on in your space?
Yeah, I'd say at this point now, um, big data has been around for a very, very long time. And whenever we can get large data sets now and run them through AI, that's my favorite space as of now, is anything that I can query through AI. And if there's a specific data set that I really, really into now, it's cybersecurity data, it's IT data, and that's an area that I feel like a lot of still internal audit departments really don't get too much involved in. Um, but there's the financial side of things when you're looking at invoices, you're looking at your transactional data, your expenditures. Not that there's not a lot of value in that because there are, and there's a lot of things you can do with that data. Um, but I feel like a lot of internal audit departments, they don't really know how to analyze well, cybersecurity and IT data, like cybersecurity logs, and helping, hey, let's look at some of these IP addresses. If there was massive downloads from a certain, SharePoint site or something like that, and looking at the IP addresses, and was this a company laptop that it was downloaded from, or was it a personal laptop? And looking at that data, and being able to dissect that and seeing what some of the risk and control failures there were, that to me excites me the most right now. Because then it's simply just because I'm in that field right now, is looking at a lot of IT data.
Yeah, that's awesome. So my next question is going to lead us into the fun bits, I
Yeah.
think. What is your favorite tool to use when you are leveraging data analytics and
Oh,
auditing?
it's this one right here. It's Databricks. That's what I got. In my current company right now, we use a lot of Databricks, and I'm so happy when my company actually, uses that and the analytics platform, because it literally you can do pretty much everything with it, and they're adding new features almost on a monthly basis now, just like any other really big Power BI or BI tools out there. They're adding some new features to it. You can build your own applications with it. It has its own governance system with Unity Catalog. And I'll go through all these for people that don't really know what these mean. But you could upload all sorts of unstructured data from pictures to uh, you know, uh, PDFs, and you could read them automatically using things like AI functions and building your own agents within an enclosed environment. It's probably my favorite tool right now, and I just live knee deep in it every single day.
Yeah. Do you have a specific project or example that you can share that
I
you use
do.
Databricks?
I do. I have a few that even that I'm working on right now, and it's actually a funny story because I was using it, and Databricks makes it so easy to use to just vibe code stuff, and this just goes back to me when I was at Metro, learning, getting my master's degree in accounting and learning how to Python program in one of the courses. I took it, 4 or 5, 6 years learning how to program, and not that it's not relevant anymore, but I don't code anymore. I don't. I mean, I look at the code, I read the code, and I still enjoy a lot of that. But because Databricks allows you to, they have a thing called AI Genie, where you just type in your prompts like, "Hey, I want to build this application. I want to build this feature in Streamlit. I want to analyze this data using these tables and from this volume, and create me a AI function, XYZ way." Um, Literally, I'm just typing away, and then it generates the code for you, and you're able to then read the code and like, yep, that's exactly the way that I would code it, and then you could build an application, and it speeds up your application development time so much faster, because anytime you have um, times where there's an error in the code, you just ask it, where's the error and can you fix it? And then it just fixes it. I mean, you got to still get some prompts and some more details around that, but it does actually a really, really good job of finding where your errors are and fixing the code and actually building the application for you.
Yeah. So, speaking of errors, talk about how you go about validating that what it's producing is what you are asking it to do. Like, what is that process of the validation?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think a lot of people, when they do start programming, you know, they kind of go things in it right away and don't have that kind of software development mindset of, hey, make sure that I set up my repo correctly. And repo is basically just your file structure. And you're modularizing the code properly as well. And nowadays, you know, because you can use Codex or you can use even Copilot, which I use both for my development work. You can just tell it, hey, this is what I want to build. Build me the repo structure for that, and it'll modularize the code for you. And so, a lot of the times where I'll take that, then I'll say, hey, Copilot, can you review the repo? And so I'll use the AI to review the AI. Now that it's you gotta have a certain amount of tokens to do this, because I found out this the hard way. Believe me, I feel like I have the scar tissue to prove this. But um, you know, Databricks now, they have a SDK a development toolkit as well, an AI development toolkit where it literally syncs up to your workspace, and you can tell it, hey, this is what I want, build me this repo, and then use another AI to then say, hey, is this correct? How can we improve this? How can we make this better? It's just, you got to be careful how much AI you really use for a lot of this, because it could really it can really drain your tokens if you do it outside of Databricks. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think especially in the audit space, there's even more validation that needs to take place because we're
Yeah.
validating the company to make sure that it's working properly. So like there's a lot of validation I think that needs to happen to make sure everything's working the way that it should.
I agree with you, and that's always one of the things I think where I always say it that internal auditors or accountants make really good developers because they always want to validate everything to make sure the data is correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, so if you have that mindset
Mm,
where and again things may take a little bit slower to do, and you plan things out first, like hey, this is what we want to build. This is what the goal of this development, and
mhm.
these are the different phases, whether you have some sort of shortened SDLC life cycle, because as internal auditors, we're not working in program development. We're not going to probably launch this enterprise wide other than a few users or within the company, and it's not going to be a tool that makes actionable decisions on hey, this application is now going to provision access to all these different people. It's really providing the data information of hey, here's some high risk transactions, or if it's IT data, here's some high risk cybersecurity incidents or whatever it may be analyzing. Hey, second line of defense or first line, take a look at this stuff and verify if you need to do any kind of follow up with this because here's some issues. Or if we are doing 100% validation testing, we still have to make sure like, hey, what we test, it's properly substantiated. So if we do that automatically using some sort of data analytics around that, that we just have to make sure that hey, the proper substantiation is also there, but then that also goes to validation to somebody else with the and the stakeholders and say, hey, we found these findings. There's 20. You still validate them. So the stakes aren't as high as if it was a critical IT application, but still, when you bring it to your stakeholders and you bring up all these issues because you did some data analytics, they're going to ask a lot of questions of like,
Mhm.
how did you get here?
Yeah.
What is that audit trail? And I feel like once if you're thinking in that kind of terms of just like okay, this is where we got the data, this is the source. AI has muddied that up a little bit, but there's still ways around that in my opinion. But you really got to be sure that that analysis that you did is correct before you
Absolutely.
actually show it to somebody.
Absolutely. Yep. So, diving deeper into Databricks, what would you say is your favorite feature to use in your audit projects?
Oh, there's a few. So with Databricks, and again, I'm not a super user. I'm still learning Databricks, and I'm learning it. I joined my company about a year ago, and we got Databricks literally about 3 to 4 months ago. So I'm still in the learning process, but I'm knee deep, neck deep into Databricks, and I gotta say, there's a few that I really like, but it's definitely the AI functions that's in Databricks. So you can use these in notebooks, or you can use them in applications that you build, or even SQL queries as well, because Databricks allows it kind of meets data engineers where they're at. So it definitely has a SQL query function that you can SQL users can use to start analyzing the data. But what AI functions is that it's a function that has AI built into it. So things like AI parse or AI extract. You can use different models as well. So there's, you outline your function, AI parse, and basically you can take a document like a PDF and use whatever models. And Databricks has a whole bunch of models with it from, Opus, Anthropic to ChatGPT to all the OpenOLama models as well, and you just give it a prompt within a notebook, just like you're coding it, say, hey, take this PDF and extract, you know, the contract end date for me. And, you know, point it to a specific location within a table or a volume, and it will read it automatically, the data, and then just using the AI, find where that end date is and extract that out of there. And then you can take that end date, put it into a data frame, and then if you have a bunch of contracts, put that all those into a data frame, and then start analyzing your data right away. It's really also good for data cleaning. I know back in the day before I used Databricks and AI, um, you would have to use a lot of natural language processing. And I feel like in a lot of ways, natural language processing, um, it's still useful, but with AI, and again, based upon how many tokens you have, and how many how much of that you can't constantly use it all the time. But with Databricks, the AI functions are built in, so it's a lot cheaper to use at Databricks as well. But back in the old day, you used to have to run a TF, IDF, natural language processing. Hey, here's a column, say for P card transactions, and you have a messy vendor column that says like Home Depot 1, Home Depot 5, or Ace Hardware's, by the Vernon Hills Valley or something like that. And you would have to run that and cross reference with another, and you would have to have machine learning kind of just, okay, if it says Ace Hardware, Vernon Hills or something like that, it's Ace Hardware. And then you would run it with, again, some sort of confidence score, say, hey, this is close enough to what we want it to be, and you would have to have the ML algorithm and just kind of verify how well it's working or not. With AI functions, you can just use the AI extract and say, hey, for this column of data, take that column and clean it the best you can based upon what you think, and normalize the data just by giving a simple prompt. And it'll do that and then put that all into a data frame, and then you can continue on with your data analysis really.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's long-winded, but that's one of my favorite ones that I like to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So you mentioned that you had to learn how to use Databricks. Of
yes.
course, learning is a huge part of all of our daily lives in the data space. So, what would you say is or was your learning approach with your introduction to getting into Databricks?
Yeah, I think that's a big hurdle for a lot of folks, learning almost anything technical, whether it's Python or learning a new language, or SQL, or any new platform, analytics platform. It's like, where how do I start, and where do I go? And I think for me, once I found we were getting on the Databricks platform, and I was very, very excited. Immediately I started talking to as many people in my network, like, are you a Databricks user? What do you know about Databricks? Can we do this? What's capabilities with that? And you're not always going to find people that know the tool as well too. And Databricks is pretty kind of new for a lot of internal auditors as well. I don't think there's many internal audit departments that use Databricks. Like, there's a few out there, and it's increasing, but it's not like you can call almost every company and talk to the internal audit department, and hey, do you guys use Databricks? And a lot of times, like, no, we use something else. We use BigQuery, or we use Power BI, or we don't use any analytics back in wall. We do it all with Excel. It's like, okay, like so it's finding those people that really understand, and are really into Databricks as well, the community. And I'm a person, I like to just put myself out there, and just start to talk to everyone. Again, one of the things that I did as I looked at LinkedIn is, who supports our Databricks account at Cushman. And that was one of the first things I did, is try to find that out. And Omar, who I give a big shout out to, he's been extremely helpful every step of the way. He'll answer all my questions, and I just constantly prod him with information on how to do this and how to do that. And he's not the technical person on the account, but he always leads me to a person that's very, very technical and super, super helpful. And then it's just joining different meetup groups. I joined a lot of communities, where they have people that know data analytics very, very well. And within that group, even just getting snippets from other people of like, hey, do you use Databricks at all? It's like, yeah, I do. Are you an expert in it? No, but like, maybe we could talk shop. Maybe we can talk how to use this. Like, what's some of the capabilities in an AI function? Have you used it before? Have you built your own application? How did you vibe code this? And having those kind of conversations with them, and just being as inquisitive as possible with them around it. And then also reading. I think for a lot of folks, especially that are programmers and technical people, they don't really read that much. I've noticed. They just, I right now I'm reading, three different Databricks books. Data engineering, the AI Genie, and ML Flow, and it just immersing yourself in it. And now with ChatGPT and AI, if there's something that you don't understand, you could put the text right into there. Use Notebook LLM. It'll give you a whole podcast around the topics that you have questions on. Create
I
video
love
slides.
Notebook
Yeah,
LM.
yeah. And so just getting mired into it and just getting as deep as possible into it. And Databricks, I'll admit, it's not an easy tool for to use and to even get used to. When you open it up, you're just kind of, oh my god, this is so many features. And what do I do? So it's just getting over that intimidation factor and just kind of just start using it. And you're gonna make mistakes. But if as long as you're willing to break things and try new things and experiment, that's the only way you're going to learn technical topics. You can't learn it any other way. You're going to run up tokens, unfortunately. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to build something that has no benefit at the end other than your learning, but you just got a lot there a lot further because you now understand how the technology works, because you broke it and then you built it back up and you broke it again, so you just have to do that constant experimentation, and you just have to learn how to fail and be good at it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's one of my approaches to learning as well, is just breaking things, because otherwise you're just like, something suspicious here. I
Yeah,
shouldn't
that's
be doing this so well. I'm
yeah,
gonna break it on purpose since you haven't.
yeah. But it goes back to your point. Anybody that's really good at anything, they really have gone into it and just went in and started messing with it, broke it a few times, built it, refactored it another way, broke it again, and just constantly experimented with it because everybody thinks like, oh, technology kind of works the same. There's 1 plus 1 equals two, but you don't know how the technology works unless you start using it. And this is just a good case for like AI. You start using it, you start experimenting with it, you start trying different things with it, and yeah, you're gonna fail. You're gonna run up tokens. You're gonna do things that might make your system very, very angry at the end of the day. But that's the only way you can learn these technical topics, these areas. You got to start getting into it and building stuff and seeing what the output is and how it works.
Yeah. And you mentioned that they have features rolling out constantly, like on a monthly basis. What would you say is your approach to keeping up with that fast pace of change?
Right. And that's I think the $1 million question, right, Monica? Because
Yeah.
I feel like even just with AI and Databricks does the same way because you have to keep up with all these, hey, why are we going to use Databricks if it's not up to the time? So I think at Databricks, they understand that as well too. So there's new features coming out every single month. And it's really keeping that good relationship with your vendor. Omar, for me, has been amazing. Anytime I reach out to him, he's, hey, how can I help you? What can I help you with? And it's just having discussions with them on what's coming out next. Hey, here's a use case that I'm thinking about. What's the best way to do this? Is there any new feature that makes this easier? And usually with these new things, these new AI tools that come out, like anything, I have a funny story, um, like that really is relevant to this, Monica, is I was using Vercel at one time to create a website, automatically and using AI and uploading it into my repo in GitHub. And I showed it to my friend. I was like, "Hey, look what I built." And he was like, "You're still using Vercel? Oh my god, that's like 3 months ago. I'm like using Coolified." And I'm like, "What?" And it's the same way in Databricks because it's just trying to keep up with all the other tools that if you don't keep up with it, you're not mired in it, and you don't have a really good support person, you're just gonna fall behind. And you need to constantly experiment with it. You need to constantly understand what the new features are, and that's constantly playing with the tool, talking to anybody in the community, ask them questions about your use cases. And again, just you got to break things. Unfortunately, that's what where we're at. We just you got to break things, and you got to run up tokens. Unfortunately,
Yeah, that's the case.
yeah.
Do you have any recommendations, tips, tricks for those folks that are trying to get into the data space, or specifically the audit folks that are trying to learn platforms like Databricks and how to do
Right.
that?
Yeah, Databricks has, it's really cool what they've built. Ali, who's the CEO, if you listen to some of the podcasts that he's on and some of the YouTube videos, they actually built a free edition that is pretty darn close to the real thing, other than certain features that they left out. But you can build your own applications on there. You can have, set up your own Unity catalog, import a lot of your structured and unstructured data, use a lot of the AI functions and a lot of the open source models that are out there as well. So, for anybody that's trying to learn Databricks, I would say open up a free account edition and start, building things with it. Whether you're building new applications with it, using the notebook feature, using the AI functions, building up your own data pipelines and jobs. Um, it has all of that built in. Like Databricks has done a really, really fantastic job with the free edition. And even myself, when I'm trying to learn a new feature and I don't want to particularly, go into my work environment and just completely mess it up, I'll actually go to the free edition and yeah, and try
Okay.
try out stuff over there where I can just upload all sorts of crazy data, you know, create a new application that I'm too embarrassed to even let my administrator know that it's in there. Just some sort of wild thing that just like, what is this? What are you trying to analyze? You're trying to analyze, like shipping data for Barbie dolls. Like, what is this? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, what is this data set that you're looking at? So I'll use the free edition to as kind of like my learning platform there, and really experiment with a lot of this stuff too. So for anybody that's trying to get into it from internal audit, and there's more and more internal audit shops that are getting into Databricks because a lot of companies are starting to adopt Databricks with data into the platform. Internal audit's like, hey, we want a piece of that. We want to be able to be on that platform. I get more and more pings from different people like, hey, you're using it, right? And even though I don't feel like I'm as far advanced as I should be, um, definitely have something. You definitely always have something to teach other folks and to learn from them as well too. So it's always good to when someone reaches out to you say, "Hey, are you using Databricks?" It's don't go, "Oh, I just got into it. I don't know." No, reach out to them as well too, and say, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking about using it for. Hey, this is what I know," and you'll be shocked how much you learn from people that are just enthusiastic about data and how to use it. That know other foundational things like programming and how other platforms work. It's at the end of the day, it's a tool, and a lot of tools work very, very similarly. I'm very fond of Databricks, and I think it's a unique tool. It's probably the best one out there, but there's a lot of similarities with it with other tools, and you'll be very shocked how much you can learn from other people, even if they are not experts or know Databricks extremely well.
Absolutely. Those that the tip of using the free version for
Yeah.
all of the wacky experiments, that's fantastic tip.
It just yeah, it's you gotta go where you feel comfortable, right? If you have some things that you want to build, you're like, oh my god, I want to keep this a secret. I don't want people knowing that I'm this much of a noob. Like I just like you need a safe space to
Yes.
experiment. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's really what technology is all about. I mean, it's a constant learning, and data analytics is constantly learning. There's always going to be something new that comes out. There's always going to be a new AI model. There's always going to be a new feature, and you just kind of just constantly get into it. And just once something new comes out, start trying to use it, and don't be afraid to break it.
Yes. I agree. Well, thank you so much, David. I know you had one other shout out that you wanted to give, a
Yes.
future data nerd.
Yes, my son. So my son was so excited to hear that I was going to be on your podcast, and that he was like, "Oh my God, you're going to be on YouTube," and I'm like, "Yes, I will." He wanted me to show a picture of him and my other son.
Amazing.
Yeah, Ethan and Evan. Yeah, and so I'm very proud of them both, and yeah, hopefully they'll be on the show one day in the future.
Yes.
Show-
Yes. You said that he's already starting to get on the data track a
He
little bit.
is. He likes to. We use a lot of anti gravity to create video games, and so I kind of, he likes a lot of games where he loves airplanes. He wants to be a pilot when he grows up. First, a baseball player, because I told him, hey, I really would like you to play for the Cubs one day. And then he was like, okay, Dad. So he's going to baseball lessons, but then he said, as a backup plan, which I think was really his first plan, he wants to be a pilot. And so
Okay.
he loves all the commercial airlines. He loves his favorite airline is still United. And again, I still have a fond place for United Airlines as well too. But he looks up the history, he looks up all the different planes. When Spirit went down, he was, with Big Group C, he was watching that like nonstop with it. So he really does want to be a pilot. But we do a lot of video game building with anti-gravity, and so I'll give him the mic and he'll start talking to it and build it. And he's 6, so it still doesn't understand it clearly. So I got to help every now and then to like, hey, no, we want a flying, plane game. We're flying around in O'Hare Airport, and so it's a lot of fun just building stuff with them and just playing with data with them.
I love that so much. Absolutely. We'll get him on the show.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so very much, David, for sharing all of these amazing stories,
Yeah.
for hopefully inspiring people to get into and start using Databricks. If anybody has any questions for you, where can they find and or follow you?
Oh, you can follow me on or find me on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn user, so you can definitely message me. I'll answer. Believe me. Just no spam. But I'm there constantly all the time, and look forward to hearing from
All right. Well, thanks again, David. And as always, folks, happy learning.
you. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Data Podcast for Nerds. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you want to transition your career and become a data professional, follow me on LinkedIn for even more tips, tricks, and nerdy fun bits.